Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Ridgely here with another Groove Growth program, and I'm super excited to have on a dear friend who is a ridiculously successful businesswoman, person, leader, mentor, entrepreneur, etc. Lee Richter. Lee, thank you so much for taking some time to be here with the Groovesters of the world.
Oh my goodness, I'm so honored to be here, and I feel so happy that we could connect today in a real and groovy way.
There you go. Exactly. So take us back a little bit. Where did this journey of becoming a business maven begin for you? How did it all start?
I love that you asked that question because just yesterday someone asked me that, and I was going back to college and I was going back to a couple things that were really inspiring to me. And through our conversation, we went all the way back to when I was 6 years old. And the through line of this where I am now actually started when I was 6, 7, 8, all the way through 12, when I was doing commercials and going to New York City and working for different brands like Lipton and Clairol shampoo and Wonder Bread and different Oscar Mayer hot dogs, like all these different brands. And I was representing them and doing commercials and interviews. And I realized I've been in advertising and marketing since I was 6. And it's really profound now how ideas that came to me at that young age are still repeating today as facts in my life today.
Like what? Like what ideas? I want to hear. Now I'm curious.
It's just like connection matters more than anything, and relationships matter so much. And I would witness even through how the camera person interacted with the PR person who interacted with the director. And I would notice relationships and how they worked and how they helped each other craft their message or be the best at what they were doing. But it took a team. It wasn't any individual. And so I think I observed it so early on, but also the power of the message, the power of connection, the power of implying a message. I did an article where I did a layout for Western Electric, and I was about 7 years old, and I was holding a light, and the light was not supposed to be hot. And that was what the message was, basically, here you have a light bulb that won't burn you. And just by me holding the light was the implication of it's not hot. And so I learned early on, so much is through visual, not even always through words. And so being really selective of how you put the visual with the words is part of the message. And yeah, I learned that early on, just being part of those things behind the scenes.
And how did that propel you forward to all the things that you're doing now? I mean, it's huge, but what were the pivotal moments? What were the tipping points, if you will, that went from, okay, now I'm a young girl helping these companies to now I am running the companies?
There is a big difference between one and the other. You're right. You know what? I always had entrepreneurial spirit. Early on, when I was 12 and 13 and I was a Girl Scout, I'd win the Girl Scout cookie contest. And I remember winning a big TV when I was 12 years old. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. Like I have a little bit of salesman in me. I can get things done. But at the same time, it was through a valuable message, right? The thing that I had learned earlier on was now carrying through. But I also learned, being a PR person and a marketing person, a lot of my friends and I are really outgoing and we like hanging out and spending time together. And, it multiplies. People who are multipliers multiply with more multipliers. And I learned how fun that was. And I think over time, building relationships, some of the key factors was I went and got a real education. I went and learned finance. I worked in finance for 14 years. I was interested about my clients and their stories, but I was also interested in how money works and how business grows and what does a business plan look like. So the more thirsty I was for knowledge, the more that I learned things, got connected to people who became mentors, and then had clients that I learned from, just seeing their portfolios and how we grew it and different things that we had to solve along the way. So getting a financial background and getting the right education was key. Getting essential mentors in place. My first mentor, I was 21 years old. I was with Merrill Lynch, and my mentor was Lou Holtz. I mean, he was iconic at the time as a coach for Notre Dame. And he was a football coach and learned how to instill discipline, but also how to instill people working together and getting things done as a team. And he came to Merrill Lynch, and there were about 50 of us chosen. And he was our mentor. And him being our mentor for 2 years, from when I was 21 to 23, was pivotal in how I think today. because he gave us a way to get rid of some of the nonsense and noise in our brain that would not help us in our future. So stories that were like family stories around who do you think you are, or get your head out of the clouds, or money doesn't grow on trees. We dispelled all those stories together as a group. And Lou Holtz led the way around mindset, around you can take those stories in the future or you can leave them behind. And these are the same things he was teaching the football players on the field, but he was bringing it to us to have in our life. And I think that was pivotal. Now looking back, I see how much I think differently than the rest of the people in my family. And I think a lot of it starts with that rewiring of how I think about money and how I think about those family stories that kind of come with us in our childhood, but we don't have to take them in our future unless they help us be better. If you have stories from your past that bring you in the future and you have a better future self, keep those stories. However, I learned if they don't bring you into a better future self, ditch those stories, because you don't have to keep taking them with you. Just take the empowering ones. So that takes me back to mentors teaching me again and again and again to weed out the things that don't help me and keep the things that do.
And we'll circle back on that for sure, because I am a huge proponent of mentors. Find them, get them, keep finding them. I don't care how old, young, smart, not smart you are, find mentors. They're great. But
can I say one thing about that, though? When I mentioned Harvey McKay, at that time, when I first met him, he wrote Swimming with the Sharks, and he had 13 mentors. He had someone for nutrition, someone for golf, someone for business. He's like, I want the best in the world to teach me, shorten my learning curve. And I learned early on. You're right. So I think within 6 or 7 months, I probably had 6 or 7 mentors, but not every mentor is like a 24/7, put on your speed dial and have to call with every problem. Some are just for a moment for one thing, like just have a conversation, hear what you hear. I mean, I've had lunch with people like Gino Wickman, and he says something and I'm like the next day, like, wow, that was a real mentor moment. Even though we were just having a conversation, he dropped such a gem that after I thought about it for a day, I could see how it really leveled up my thinking. And I call that a mentor moment. And we get those all the time. We just don't always acknowledge how special it is. But I think if you put in your journal of top 5 things like I'm grateful for today, some of those will pop up.
I think that's absolutely right. And I am with you 100%. In fact, I shudder to think where I would be if it weren't for the mentors who have helped me find so many of the paths and continue to. I'm like that. I have mentors for everything I can find. So
the thing is also you're an incredible mentor because you know what it's like to be mentored. This is why you can show up for your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, your community, people like me in your masterminds, is because you're so natural at being that one that drops that gem, that little miracle that someone walks away and says, wait a second, that way of thinking actually changes my life. Thank you for that. Thank you for showing up and being so generous. And part of it is because others have shown up for you that way. So you can model it and pay it forward. I love it.
Yeah, and such a huge believer in that. But I want to touch back on one of the things you said, because I think this is an important piece that many entrepreneurs, especially budding entrepreneurs, overlook, which is the importance of understanding the finances. As you're growing a company, how key is that to learn about the money, how the money works, what it looks like, et cetera, for the young entrepreneur that's up and coming?
It is one of the most essential things. When I look at a company, I see 4 different parts of it. When I add me as the CEO, there's 5. So I'll go back to the basics of there's 4 parts, which is marketing, operations, sales, and finance. Each one is equally important and needs to be healthy in your organization. Sometimes in the beginning, you're all 4 and you need mentors who are the best, or consultants or advisors that you hire. You might hire an accountant for the financial or a fractional CFO. But in the beginning, you might be doing everything yourself. So you have to self-learn some of the basics and understand the foundations. And right now, there's so many resources out there that you can get the foundations and the index and the, books and things that will help you. But in the beginning, you just need to know how to ask the right questions and keep yourself safe, right? Keep yourself safe in making good decisions. However, you need to know how to make good decisions. And that's by knowing how to ask the right questions. And a lot of it is, who can help me with this? And so when I look at marketing, sales, operations, and finance, my financial team is a series of people. Some of them are tax experts helping me look into the future. Some of our CPAs, which are historians of the past. 2 different things, 2 different skill sets, 2 different viewpoints. In the beginning, people think they hire a CPA and they're going to look into the future. No, they're historians documenting things that already happened. Very rarely do you find someone progressive for the future. What I learned is not only do I need a tax expert to be for the future, but I also need somebody who's a second opinion on my CPA to make sure I didn't miss anything from the past. Because I've had second opinion CPAs save me more than it cost me to hire them to look at it just by finding one or two things and thinking of it differently. So as you're building your team and you get more complex, you're going to need better and higher level who's. So be prepared in the beginning. You might do it yourself. And over time, you're going to add other people. But the number one thing is asking for help and asking who's the right who to use right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that the young entrepreneur has a challenge with because they don't think like that. It's not a normal way of thinking for someone who's just getting going. It's, oh my gosh, I got to do all these things and I got to do all these things and I got to do all these things.
Right. And there's two big misconceptions with that, because I know people who are veterinarians. I know people who are doctors. My husband's a veterinarian. They learn how to do medicine. They learn how to work with clients. They know how to do all those things. But there's two dramatic, big things they didn't learn in school that when they get in the real world, they learn really hard. They need to know. And one is finances and managing their finances. And the other is marketing. Marketing is attracting clients to who you are doing, what you're doing and why you're doing it so that they want to be your client. That 95% of why businesses fail because they don't understand marketing. And a lot of them, when you talk to them, they're like, if I only knew this one little thing called marketing, I might have done better. Yeah, you need marketing. And the other thing is, once you earn money, you need to know how to manage it. That's a different skill set. One is earning, one is managing. That's two different things to do, right? Just like I said, the CPA and the tax advisor, there's two different lenses. One's from behind, one's for the future. It's the same with everything you do. There's going to be different perspectives to look at it. So the more complex your life gets, the more complex your business gets, the more you're going to need to know business acumen, financial acumen, how to ask for help, how to understand how to make decisions. Like these things are necessary. A lot of that can be done through mentors, right? But the financial piece is so important to learn. I'll tell you, a friend of mine, he started a thing called Gravy Stack. Gravy Stack is a way where kids especially can go and learn financial acumen to be prepared for Web3. I actually want to recommend it to every age group to go in and understand the dynamics of how money works, because that's what they're teaching in there. They're basically giving it to kids at cost just to learn how to manage their money in Web3, because where they're going, their parents can't teach them because their parents aren't in Web3. Mm-hmm. So I love it that they're doing it, but I think all of us should be in there learning it together. And part of it is learning the financial acumen that they're teaching. So I think a lot of us aren't lucky at the age of 21 like I was, where I not only got an education from Merrill Lynch, who had classes done for us from Wharton School of Business, but brought us Lou Holtz to teach us in Manhattan. Like that kind of education doesn't exist today unless you create it yourself. But back then when I was 21, I had the universe create that for me. And I learned so much. And what I learned is you're in charge of your education, to be as much a lifelong learner as you can and consistently learning, and learn the things you need to know now to help you to be having a better tomorrow. And financial pieces is a really big piece, not only for your business, but for your whole life. As soon as you nail that piece, other things get built on that foundation. As soon as you take the stress of finances out of a marriage, you have a better marriage. As soon as you take the stress out of finances out of your life, you have a better life, because now you can make decisions based on what you choose, not just based on where's the money coming from.
Yeah, but it's so funny. One of my mentors is Les Brown, and we go way, way back. We're really good friends. I was on the faculty at Les Brown University as a speaker.
You're so lucky. That's why you're so cool, because you're 1 degree from super cool.
I know. And Les used to say, 90% of your problems would be resolved with a magic checkbook. And he would say, money's not that important to some. Me, I rate it up there with oxygen. Right.
It's a resource that allows us to make decisions based on, if you have unlimited abundance in that, your decision making is different than if you have a limited budget. It gives you freedom of choice. And as a leader, I want freedom of choice to make the best decision right now for what I think my company needs. And I don't want it based on dollars. When I see at the veterinary hospital that someone's basing the decision of life or death on their pet based on how much does it cost for that surgery, it breaks their heart. They would much rather just say yes to the surgery than have to sit there and measure their checkbook of what's right, what's not. And we want to give them alternatives and choices. And at the same time, it's agonizing if it comes down to a dollar decision instead of a moral decision.
Yeah, and it's also it's very interesting because I see a juxtaposition that is unique. The young entrepreneur must learn these things about finances.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we live in a world of specialists, of where you can't know everything. And like, for example, my brother is a big real estate guy, and he's very successful, and he's really good at it. So he calls me up and says, hey, I got one. And I say, okay, great. How much are you putting in? He'll say, okay, 50K. I go, great. Do I have to understand anything? No. Do I have to read anything? No. Do I have to do anything at all other than sign the thing and send you the money? No. Okay, I'm in. Right? That's my.
You have 100% trust factor with him.
Correct. And
that's
I'm
the key.
also clear that if I want I want meat, I'll go to the butcher. If I want bread, I go to the baker. I don't want to come to me to ask me questions about something that I'm not an expert in. So after a while,
It's like when you get your hair cut, they're not saying, hey, which pair of scissors do you think I should use? You're like, you're the expert. You choose. I trust you as the expert. However, in finance, in health, in these things, that trust on the front is the biggest thing. And because that is a person in your life that you trust the way you do, now you're able to make those kind of decisions, an educated decision, which is, I trust you to help me with that. Thank you for cluing me in, giving me an opportunity, and I trust your decision. And so he's given you so much luxury in your life to give it to the right who, because you can trust him. And so, but you did your due diligence, and you've seen over time, he's also proven to you he can do what he says he's going to do. And so his integrity earns you to keep saying yes.
Well, and also, I think there comes a point where you recognize for yourself, all right, there's certain fundamentals that I must know to operate successfully in this world. And there's a whole lot of things that I don't need to know that are just a distraction. And the more focused I can stay on what I do and stay in my lane, the further we're going to get down the road.
That is the biggest lesson. And it should go in your show notes, because I think it's not always obvious to everyone. And so many people cling on to it, and they get so tight-fisted around it, even with their team. Like, no, let them go. Let them be the expert. I think that's a really big lesson. Thank you for sharing that and reminding me today. I might have to use that later.
All right. So Lee, tell us about one time, something that strikes you when things just went south. I mean, it was oh no, how did this happen? What happened, and what did you take away from it?
I love that you asked that. And I'm thinking in Web3, because now that I'm in Web3 and NFTs, I'm like, I want to think of something recent. I probably have 1,000 of them that happened before Web3 that I could share, but Web3 relevance right now, everything is changing so much. And I'm in the NFT marketplace. And a couple of years ago, I was approached by a good friend of mine who had a project with the Kobe Bryant Foundation. And I just love the product. I love the idea. I love the project. And I love what they were wanted to accomplish, which was in honor of one of the communities that Kobe Bryant liked the most was Make-A-Wish Foundation. He loved to support Make-A-Wish Foundation. And this was a project that would benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so it was an NFT project, mint the NFTs, and the money that was made would go to Make-A-Wish Foundation. Super behind it, loved it, went to the NBA, talked to them, got their permission. They signed off on it, Make-A-Wish. Everyone signed off on it. We're getting ready to go to public. And the stadium said, oh, sorry, it was in our stadium. And guess what? We're a partner too. And we did not anticipate it. And what I learned in that moment is you have to have a checklist of anyone who could have any access to any of the intellectual property or rights. And in that moment, I learned you have to look deeper than the obvious. Like, I didn't think of the stadium, just didn't think of it. And of course, the stadium's going to want a piece of it. It happened on their property. But what it taught me was layers and layers and layers deeper than I imagined to begin with. I thought we checked all the boxes. And in that moment, as we then did another project and another project, and now I'm working on the project for the Vatican, this time we had 37 pages of IP checked off, and both attorneys said yes before we moved forward, that everything was cleared. And because of that past experience, I now doubly check all the IP, make sure everything is covered, and make sure our part is protected as well. So from some adversity, even though it was a learning lesson that was painful in the moment, And it was a very visual, upfront message in the community that we were learning on the job because no one had done it before us. So we were learning with our training wheels on. But now I'm so grateful I had it because it's instilled with me, like clear the IP first. And it took us 3 months to do it this time, but I stood behind it 100%, said, I cannot move forward until 100% I know it's cleared. And smart people want to work with smart people. And I'll tell you, I think one of the reasons why we could move everything forward is because we were all in agreement. We weren't going to do it until it was all 100% cleared. Did not start the campaign, did not start anything until the okay from both attorneys that it was valid. So hard learning lesson, but valid at the same time.
Is that lesson meaning pay attention to the details? That's a big one for entrepreneurs. I mean, the young entrepreneur especially is charging ahead so fast, trying to keep the machine rolling or whatever, pouring it all back in, etc. Sometimes those details are the last thing on the entrepreneur's mind.
And you have to be progressive with those details and then investigative for any other details you might not even thought about. I mean, ChatGPT can help us now because you can put it in there. Is there anything I didn't think about? And they'll tell you if there is, because I've already done it. Hey, I did this set of instructions on how to do XYZ. Am I missing anything? And they'll come back, yeah, you're missing these 2 things. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of those 2. Or this marketing plan, please add to it, based on award-winning marketing plans out there. And it shows me, hey, I might think of 8 or 9 of them, but there might be another 1 or 2 I didn't think about. And we can now check with ChatGPT as a checks and balance of, did we cover our bases? So I didn't have that resource available back then, but now I actually have a who that can help me. And ChatGPT happens to be that sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. AI is very helpful. I'm not saying use it as a crutch. I'm saying use it as a springboard.
Yeah. So tell us, what do you think are the top, I know you're very involved. So tell us, what are the top 2 or 3 ways that you would recommend that people should use AI?
Yeah, well, just being curious. Like I recently, you could use it for personal things like, hey, I'd like to make an apple pie. What would be the best recipe and ingredients? What's an award-winning recipe and ingredients from Travel and Leisure magazine stance or whatever. So you can put something specific. And then you could say, make a shopping list. And then you could say, send it to my local store. You can have it all done automated. I saw my friend Scott Donald did that for his family. Like here's a menu for 5. One person's a vegetarian. Please order the ingredients and then send it on his Instacart, and had it ordered. And he set it up all automated. It's just done. And I'm watching a lot of people behind the scenes automate their personal life so it's easier. But I'm also seeing business life, almost anything. If I'm writing a book right now, or like for the Vatican, one of the things is like top 10 reasons to visit the Vatican. So I could put in ChatGPT, tell me, what are the top 10 reasons I should go to the Vatican based on Oprah's ideas, or based on Tony Robbins, or based on whomever. I could even put you in there. Like what would Evan Pagan want to see if he went to the Vatican? You can play around with it and see what ideas come out. My team just put my bio in ChatGPT. They put my regular bio and they're like, I just did a TED talk on Web3 and access in technology. And so they wanted to add the TED talk in my bio. So they're like, add that you did this TED talk, but also do it as if you were Oprah. Do it as if you were a Pulitzer Prize award-winning journalist. Do it as if you were a New York Times journalist. So they would see the different voices and just play around with the different results. So I think the first thing is be curious. Go on open.ai. OpenAI is ChatGPT. You set up a free account and just be curious and start playing around with it. I inspired a friend of mine who is an absolutely wonderful person, and he had some how would you say, like mental health issues that had come in his way in the past, and he overcame them and learned a lot about it. But he said there's nobody there to help the next generation when it's their turn. And right now, so many kids are in anxiety and stress. And I said, well, go on ChatGPT and start writing a book about it. And so he started writing what he was thinking and then adding things he learned on ChatGPT. And he's got 40 pages done for a book, and he's so inspired. And it's just been a few days. So he went from an idea to, oh my goodness, I'm actually writing a book. And now he's really so proud of his work because he sees the impact it can have for other people. And that if someone had done this for him, how it would have saved him so much time and trouble and the unknowing of who to ask for help, right? It's the same way here. Who do you ask for help? He's going to show people, here's some of the opportunities you have to ask for help. Here's some of the things you might not know about that are resources that will help you, that he learned the hard way. But now with ChatGPT is who helping him, he's more inspired, and they're not writing it for him, but they're giving him ideas in research that it would take him forever to find on his own.
Mm-hmm. So how do you address this concept? Our children can't read a map. They cannot calculate using anything other than a calculator because tools have made them kind of lazy.
Right.
Are we concerned at all that AI and ChatGPT and others are going to further contribute to this laziness of thought?
Yeah, it does come from inside. I will say, when I started noticing that American schools were not teaching cursive writing anymore, I went and searched for a French American school just so my daughter would learn arts, how to be in a play, how to read music, how to play music, how to write in cursive. And I, as a parent, took responsibility for my child and put her in a place where she would thrive better. So I think it's up to the parents to learn what's best education for their child and look at our school systems as a supplement, but not the answer. So I think we as parents, grandparents need to really taking more into our own life. How do we now? I've seen 6 parents get together and be a community and do it together. No one had to do it alone, but they're like, hey, we live on the same block. Our kids are the same age. Why don't the 6 of us say, hey, let's take them out in nature and show them how leaves grow? Because right now, some of the trees have leaves, some don't. They can learn what is going on in nature right now. They're showing up as parents, filling in the gaps that the schools aren't doing. So I think that's what we have to do, is not look at others to babysit our children, but just to supplement our ideas. Now I have a lot of wealthy people who would never put their kids in our school system because they think it's dysfunctional and wrong. And ChatGPT is going to add to that because it's not going to help people with the basics like you're talking about, but it's really up to us as the community members to instill those back to basic moments. I think we can't expect anyone else to do it. ChatGPT is not going to make it easier. It's not going to teach them how to read a map. It's actually going to teach them how to skip all of those lessons. But me as a mom with my daughter, taking out the map and saying, hey, this is the old fashioned way I used to do it. Just learn it with me for fun. Let's see if you can do it. I wonder if you can. Like me having it, making it fun for her is my job.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they've never had to memorize a phone number. I still have phone numbers in my head from college, right? Because I needed to know them. They never had to do that. So if I asked her what's my phone number, she wouldn't even know, and I'm her mom. Mm-hmm. And that's a disconnect right there. So we have many, many disconnects, and technology and humanity is at a crossroads of how much is adding value and how much is taking away basically human interactions that used to be so valuable. So there's 12 levels of human intimacy. Number 1 is just like eye gazing and seeing each other. It's also touching your hand or touching your shoulder or just being present, all the way to, yes, having sex, which is the ultimate intimacy for a lot of people. And we've noticed already this generation has been going, even before COVID, they've been going 1, 2, 11, 12, and they're missing all this intimacy in the middle, like sitting on a bench and talking about a movie after a movie. Because they're not doing that. They're missing these middle levels. And I've had other people have conversations about how they've noticed it, but technology isn't going backwards anymore. It's only going to keep advancing. And so we're not going to see it get better. We're going to actually see through VR and AI it changing even more, I think, away from our original 12 levels of intimacy are transforming. Mm-hmm. But you and I can make sure the grandkids and the kids are having exposure to those moments like before, but it's up to us. It's not going to be, and they don't know the difference until somebody shows them.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And I think that finding ways that they can do things that are hard and difficult and fail and learn how to fail and fail their way forward.
You're right. Having some challenges, having to overcome some obstacles, even if some of it is a little bit manufactured, will put their brain in a different, because you're right. They are in a little bit of things are easy. It comes to them. They play games. People are making money on Axie Infinity and going on Roblox. And I mean, there's 12,000 billion hours have been on Roblox since it started. 12,000 billion hours, which is a gaming platform in Web3. And you're like, how could 12,000 billion hours of gaming and fun and Web3 stuff be going on and us not be losing productivity somewhere? Or the importance of education of the basics.
Or connection.
And connection. They're getting a different kind of feeling of connection. So they think they have it, but it's not intimate belly to belly breaking bread and laughing over a movie like we used to. It's a different form for them. And it's going to get further away as it advances, I think.
I think you're right. So, top 2 characteristics of the successful entrepreneur. What are the top 2 things that a successful entrepreneur in your mind must cultivate or bring out or surface or whatever?
That's a really good question. And it's changed for me over the years. And right now I'm so steadfast and I know what it takes to be like that leader in entrepreneur field. And recently I heard Brene Brown do a speech about it and picked the same 2. So I think I'm even more confident because she's had 4,000 hours of interviewing people to get to the same 2. And the number 1 is gratitude, starting in gratitude. And I know it seems trivial and our friends are in the movie The Secret and it seems like gratitude, but really gratitude is a really good place to start. And part of that is just to be in an upward spiral of your even inside talk, because if you're in your gratitude, you can't be anything else but grateful. And so it starts an upward spiral. So you're already starting in a plus energy rather than victim spiral, like today I don't want to get up, or I'm too tired, or it's raining outside. That could be a downward spiral. So then you have to do something to make it up. Well, starting in gratitude automatically starts up. So that's number 1, start in gratitude. Number 2 is be resilient. No matter what, don't give up. Keep doing it. You're going to fail. You're going to learn more through those challenges. Just keep getting up and keep doing it. So many people give up right before they're going to be uber successful. And there have been times I've wanted to give up and literally within moments, something trajectory happens. And I'm like, oh my God, we would have missed that if I didn't stick in the game. So I would just say gratitude and resiliency. Those are the 2 factors. I'm always looking for people who are batteries included, and they come with gratitude and they come with the opportunity to let me know how resilient they are and that they'll keep getting up, get in the game and make it even better.
I had to write that down. Be a batteries included person. I love that. That is just awesome. Okay,
we talk about that in Strategic Coach because we're like, when I hire someone, I want them to be in batteries included. If they're the who, I want them to be the best, take care of themselves, and just report back to me what was so great that they did. I don't want to have to go to them and be like, hey, what'd you do? Or just wait for them to come with problems for me to solve. You know, one of the number 1 questions to ask someone who's on your team who comes to you with problems to solve, because we have them, they want the shortcut, right? They'll come and they'll be like, hey, I have this problem. What would you do? Hey, I have this problem. And they think they're honoring you like, oh, you're so smart. Tell me. No, we want to empower them. So the number 1 first question to ask when someone comes to you with a problem, do you know what it is? I bet you do. You're a grandpa.
Yeah, it would be, and what would you do to solve this problem? Or what ideas do you have to kind of overcome this? Or tell me how you would handle this instead of me. Yeah.
And in that flavor, it's exactly the same line is, what have you done so far? Because then they learn they have to do at least 1 or 2 things so they could say what they did, and whether it didn't or didn't work, or they need to go to someone else, at least they did something on their own, batteries included, before they came to me to solve it. And so if they told me, oh, well, I called Johnny and I tried this and I went to the newspaper and Googled this or whatever they did, at least if they made some effort towards it, then I'm happy to give them next steps. But I want to see them, batteries included, work on it and come up with a solution. A lot of times they'll come up with it on their own and they don't even need to come to me and waste my time. They can solve it. Next time they'll tell me, hey, I was going to come to you, but what I learned is I went to Google, I found this, and then I asked Mary and I found out that's the right way. And now what we're doing is give them a path to be batteries included and report it. That's what we want. That's how we empower our leaders, make good decisions, but also tell me about it. So I'm at least clued in that you made a decision on my behalf, right? So that's the key. How do you get people to not only do it, but then be so excited they can't wait to tell you about it and report it to you?
And what would be the top 3 books that you would recommend for the entrepreneur and why?
For right now, and I'm glad you asked me a little bit earlier because I put a couple of them here on my nightstand here. So on my desk. Ready? Number 1 from Joe Polish right now. I love this book. What's in it for them? And as a leader, this is key to know what's in it for them. He gives great stories. It's super fun. It's funny, and everything is able to be applied right now. So this is number 1, I would say. Number two, because I love Gino Wickman, he talks about traction, he talks about rocket fuel. He absolutely gives leaders how to go out in the world and build their teams. And one of his favorite books that I love for the entrepreneur is the EOS Life. And this is the entrepreneur operating system came out of his book, Traction and Rocket Fuel. Traction is here's how you do it. Rocket Fuel is here's how you empower implementers to do it with you. This is about how do you enjoy the balance of your life with it. So I think this is really key. And me personally, I go to Maui 4 times a year and I stare at the ocean for one reason. I want to know where is my next blue ocean. And that's how NFTs came in my life. That's how blockchain came in my life. That's how the Vatican story and different Comic-Con things I've done. And from this, and that is how do I create the blue ocean in my field, in the veterinary industry, in whatever I'm interested in? How do I think about where no one's been before? The only challenge is there's no roadmap. You have to create it yourself. You have to be the pioneer. So by being in gratitude and being resilient, you can be the pioneer. So those are the ones right now. If I had to do a real wish list personal though, can I put in a bonus?
Sure.
For people really curious, I learned this from Marla Mattinson. I've learned it from a lot of people, but to pay attention to your human design. And it's very complicated and interesting. And the more I'm diving in and the more I'm seeing my human design next to other people and their human design, the more I'm like, wait, there's something interesting about this. It's not 100% scientific. You know, my husband, who's a doctor, would be like, no, I don't really want to go there. But there's a lot of instinctual things. And Marla had taught me about it originally because sometimes she could barely walk by me. We'd feel like, wow, there's this energy between us. What is it? And when we did our human design, we saw like 2 or 3 pathways that basically she completed me or I completed her. And it was like, wow, when we're together, we're a whole person in this extraordinary thing, but separate, we didn't have that same power. And by learning that, I could start seeing that with me and other people too, like when they either complete me or add value, and I feel it instinctual, I can now look in human design and be like, oh, wait, there is a science to it. It's already shown that we're supposed to do that for each other. It's almost like an explanation point. You figured it out and it's true, you know? And so I've been having a lot of fun just in discovery with that. I learned some things. My husband and I have been together 33 years and I learned some things about us that was really powerful. And yeah, just approaching it with some curiosity for fun and my personal life. So shared that.
Love that. All right. Final words to the budding entrepreneurs from Lee Richter, the great Lee Richter. What would you say out there to that person that's up and coming, that's really wanting to take it to the next level? What would you want to share with them?
Your people are waiting for you. I think all these years I've been doing PR for all these other people and I've been getting them front and center. My husband, #1 veterinarian in America. I shared him with the world, all these other like iconic people, including right now with the Vatican. And I never did it for me. I just stayed behind the camera. I didn't do it. And what I'm having fun with right now is sharing my story. And originally, it wasn't even on my radar to do it. But the more I'm sharing my story, the more I'm having fun. And I think your people are waiting for you to share your story too. So just go do it. Have fun. Make it really, really valuable for you, for your community. And we're all waiting for you to share your story.
I love this. Set yourself on fire and the world will come from miles around to watch you burn. Right?
Ooh,
Your
yeah.
story.
Your brightest light, no matter what. Yeah. Never dim it for anyone.
Well, thank you very much, Lee, for sharing your wisdom with the world. I love this. I'm just like, batteries included. I just love that. I'm like, that is so good. And everyone should have that feeling. Yeah, man, look for the people that are batteries included. No doubt.
Yeah.
All right.
And you are batteries included, which is why you love to surround yourself with others that are, because together we achieve more because nobody's needy or complaining or in victim mindset. It's just everyone's whole and contributing our best together. And that's what creates momentum together.
Exactly right. Lee Richter, thank you so much for sharing your time with the Groove community. Love you, appreciate you, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.